No niin, moikka moi, se on Werneri podcast taas ja vuoden ensimmäinen podcasti on nyt tässä kuunneltavissa ja oikein hyvää alkanutta vuotta 2016. Kevättä aloitellaan näin podcastin merkeissä ja nuorisotyön ohjelmakin pikkuhiljaa päivittyy tonne sivuille eli www.werneri.org. Käyppä sieltä jossakin vaiheessa katselemassa. Paljon kaikenlaista kivaa on tulossa. Ensimmäinen podcast on todella spesiaali, koska mulla oli ilo ja kunnia haastatella Matt Popovitsia, joka on siis pastori tuolla New York Cityssä. Ja Matt hän on osalle teistä varmaan tuttu Maata Näkyvissä festareiden kautta, jossa hän oli vierailevana puhujana, oli itse asiassa viime vuonna ja myös toissa vuonna. Ja Skypen kautta tehtiin haastattelu, joten äänenlaatu on vähän mitä se on, mutta kyllä siitä puheesta saa ihan hyvin selvää. Haluan tässä vaiheessa jo pahoitella hieman omaa englannin kielen taitoja, vaikka kuinka koetin kotona ennen tätä haastattelua puhua ääneen ja käyttää sitä englannin kieltä, niin silti kieli meni aika vahvasti solmuun. Ja suurimmaksi syyksi sen takia, että mua vaan jännitti niin kauheasti. Mutta koin, että haastattelu meni tosi hyvin. Siitä voi antaa myöskin palautetta meikälle päin. Haastattelu on siis englanniksi, mutta siinä käytetään aika hyvin selkeitä termejä, että siitä pitäisi saada selvää. Jos sulla jää jotain kysyttävää tästä, niin kun nähdään, niin nykäse hihasta ja kysy tai laita mulle sähköpostia. Soita, laita tekstiviestiä, WhatsAppaile, pistä Facebookin kautta viestiä, jos jokin asia jäi hieman epäselväksi. Niin käydään sitä sitten läpi. Mutta tässä Matt Popovits. Hi!
Hey, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Good to hear from you.
You too. Are you tired?
No, not at all. Not at all. How's the day going in Finland?
Dark. So dark.
Is it in the extended period of darkness now?
Yeah, I guess. But we are going towards summer, so it's getting brighter every day.
You have to have that attitude, right?
Yeah. If you want to survive here, yes.
That's what you keep telling yourself.
Okay. I had a list of questions, but I lost it. So
okay.
I think I'm gonna just improvise.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So for first thing, I would like to ask, or could you tell, like in a nutshell, who is Matt Popovits?
Goodness, Matt Popovits is a dad to Ava and Jack, a husband to Lisa, whom I've known and loved since I was in middle school. About 13 years old was when we met. And we're now 35, so that tells you how long we've been together. I'm a son and a brother to two great guys, and a son to John and Karen. But I'm also a pastor. And so my whole calling in life is to encourage people with the message that God is not mad at you. He's not forgotten you. And his love and mercy and grace are there for you in Jesus Christ. And so I just dedicate my whole life to doing that in a number of different ways. I pastor a couple of churches here in New York City. I create videos. I speak at conferences. And so I just try and find as many avenues as possible while being a husband and a father and a son and a brother to tell people about the love of Jesus. That's what I do.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. I read somewhere that you started out as an actor.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I did.
So
Yeah.
what made change your mind and become a pastor?
Well, I saw how hard it was to be famous, so I decided to do something else. No, I'm just kidding. What happened was I was studying theater at university. I had a scholarship to do that, and was enjoying that quite a lot. But in the meantime, I was working at a church, my home congregation that I grew up in. and doing that more and more and enjoying that quite a bit as well. And then when I was 19, almost 20, a friend of mine who I had grown up going to church with and graduated high school with got very, very sick, had a heart attack at the age of 19. And I got the chance to visit him in the hospital and pray with him and pray with his family and encourage them. And I had gone up there with my pastor and his wife, who had encouraged me to come and visit him as he was dying. And that moment was life-changing for me. I walked out of that setting and I asked my pastor and his wife, I said, this is such a sad moment, but I really enjoyed being in that sad moment and trying to encourage Josh even as he died, and to encourage his family as they lost their son and their brother. And I said, does that make me a bad person that I enjoyed doing this kind of thing? And their response was no. They said, Matt, that's the feeling you get when you are doing what you were made to do. And then it became very clear to me that encouraging people with the message of Jesus was what I was supposed to do with my life. And so I finished out my university degree. But at that moment, I began setting my sights on being formed into a pastor. And so I then went to graduate school, studied theology, and became a pastor in 2005.
So you've been like 11 years doing what you do.
Yeah. So this is my 11th year of pastoral ministry. Yeah.
What do you think is like the best thing about your job, and what's the worst thing?
Goodness. I think the best thing and the worst thing are both the same a lot of times. The best thing about being a pastor is that you get a seat of privilege at really incredible moments in people's lives. I mean, you get to be a part of their life when they're getting married. You get to be a part of their life when they're baptizing their children. You also get to be a part of their life when they're sick and when they're dying. You get to gather them together on a regular basis and remind them of what's truly important. So the best thing about being a pastor is that you get a front row seat to the best and worst things in life. And it's really an honor to be invited into that by people over and over again. But that can also be a real burden. It's hard to watch people die. It's hard to meet people in their sin and talk about it and not get depressed by it. It's hard to have your life at times interrupted by the tragedies and triumphs of other people's lives, to be quite honest. But that's the call of a pastor, is to just be present and be ready for people when life happens to them. So the best and worst things are really in some ways the same. The place of privilege you get in being a part of their lives in the best and worst moments, but then also the fact that you have to walk with people in their worst moments. And that can be really hard. It can be really hard.
So it's a hard work. How do you relax and get your mind off your work?
I like to get my mind off work by doing more work. There's a term in English called avocation. It's like the word vocation, meaning calling or job, with an A at the beginning of it. It means doing work you're not called to do, and so but you enjoy. And so for me to relax, I love doing work that I'm not called to do. So if I get to work around the house, that makes me feel good. Or if I have other projects that are maybe not attached to my parish or to my personal pastoral ministry, I really enjoy that. It's a good distraction. So I like exerting effort in things that I'm not called to do. Or I have a scooter that I ride around New York City on. Working on that or riding that or cleaning that, I love to do those kind of things.
Okay. I also read that you did some work in Texas. Am I right?
I did. Yeah.
So why move to New York? Was it bad in Texas or?
No, it was wonderful in Texas. It was amazing. The people of Texas are incredible, and the state of Texas itself is really, really quite wonderful. And the ministry there was and continues to do really, really well. I came to New York City because that was the plan all along. Even though that got sidetracked for a while in Texas, I knew that I was supposed to at least try and start a church in New York City and to do ministry among people that I had known and loved when I was in theater. And so when I got out of seminary, I was given a call, an offer to pastor at a church in Texas for a while I learned how to be a pastor and then go to plant a church in New York City. But when I got to that church in Texas, things just went really well. We loved the people. They loved us. The church started to grow. And so we stayed there for a really long time. Stayed there for 7.5 years. And up until the very end thought, maybe we're never going to leave here. But then, before we made that decision to never leave Texas, we said we really should pray through starting a church in New York City, which is what we kind of got into this for in the first place. So we started to pray through that and think about opportunities to do that. And it just became clear that was something we needed to try before our ministry was over, and that this was the right time. And so we stepped out of our ministry in Texas with great joy on all sides. They were sad. I was sad, but we knew this was faithful, and dove into planting a church in New York City. And we've been here for the last almost 4 years.
So how do you like it?
It's the hardest and most beautiful thing I've ever had to do. It's incredibly difficult. It's a really tough context, a really tough setting to do ministry. Churches don't like to grow here. They can, but they don't like to. It's like having some really dry soil and trying to grow a beautiful flower in it. It can grow there, but it's just the time it takes and the effort it takes is pretty amazing. So that's why I say it's like the most difficult thing I've ever done. But it's also the most beautiful because doing something hard is all, and then seeing there be fruit is usually really rewarding, and it's very rewarding work. And so we enjoy it. We enjoy the fact that it's New York City and we have access to some incredible things. On Friday night, I took my daughter to a Broadway show. That was her Christmas present. So we walked to the subway and went to the theater and went to a Broadway show and saw some of the best performers in the world, and then got on the train and came home. And that was our evening. And so the ability to do things like that is pretty amazing. So we love it for those types of things. And the ministry is very rewarding in many senses, but it's also really hard, really hard.
Okay. So you've been here in Finland twice, or have you been more often? Twice.
No, I've just been twice, but I want to come back. So anybody who wants to bring me back to Finland is more than welcome. It's my second home. I love it there.
Okay. What do you like the best?
The people.
People.
The people are wonderful. People were telling me, well, Finnish people are quiet, or Finnish people are shy. And I just didn't find that to be the case at all. I found Finnish people to be full of life and energy and great wisdom. And the people I met at the Maata Näkyvissä festival were full of great faith and great questions. And so my best part about being in Finland is the people. The people are kind and thoughtful and smart and full of life. And so that's the thing I miss the most when I'm not there.
Okay, so like the stereotype of a Finnish person is broken.
I think so. I mean, I think Finnish people don't give themselves enough credit for how interesting and really one of a kind they are. I met plenty of Finnish people who have a low view of themselves, but I've not met any Finnish people who actually matched that view. All the Finnish people I met were kind and thoughtful and full of things to say and really hospitable and very funny. And so I thoroughly enjoy the people.
Okay. You work in a Lutheran church, right? Mm-hmm. So do you see any kind of differences between church in there and the church in here in Finland?
You know, to be honest, I haven't gotten much opportunity to be in the church in Finland, to worship with you and to see it in action. I've met several Lutheran pastors, but I've not worshipped with the church. I have a sense that it's, in many ways, it's very similar to a traditional Lutheran church here in the United States in terms of the liturgy, in terms of what church feels like. The Lutheran Church in the U.S., especially the church body that I'm a part of, is fairly conservative in how it does worship. There are set readings every week. The pastor wears vestments. The church service has a formal liturgy that's followed. And the church body that I'm a part of here in the U.S. Is very similar. Our church in New York City, which is a part of that church body, doesn't follow that practice. One, because I'm not very good at it, and two, the people that we are trying to reach in New York City are not at all familiar with it, and so we have adjusted our practice, what worship feels like, so that it might be more familiar, not familiar, but more welcoming and more naturally hospitable to people who are outside of the church. And so if you come into one of our churches, you'll hear a thoroughly Lutheran message. We will talk about the severe brokenness of human beings and the unbelievable mercy of God in Jesus Christ. You'll hear that over and over and over and over again. But I'll be wearing, normal clothes. And we hire and make friends with local musicians and artists to play our music. So you'll see someone with an electric guitar and drums and an upright bass and maybe a saxophone playing all the music for us. We'll say the Lord's Prayer, we'll confess the creeds, but it'll feel a little different than your typical Lutheran church.
Okay, that's the kind of thing I would like to see here in Finland, because it's more like
you should come visit us in New York City.
Yeah, I vowed that if I come, I'll see you there.
And we had 2 weeks ago, we had 2 people from the festival come and
really
visit our church. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. So Kai, you need to do that as well.
and I will if I ever had the chance to come there. But I had a question in my mind, but it ran away. Okay, well, it's gone. So I'm gonna think of another one then.
That's all right.
I was thinking about, can you give any kind of tips how we can make our community or our congregation more welcome? Because it's kind of a problem. I think for myself, it's the thing that, and if you come to church or other activities the parish sets up, you kind of get sort of a, how do you say, like everybody else thinks that you are some kind of Christian crazy, or I don't, like a Ned Flanders type of people.
Yeah. Ned Flanders. Yeah.
Ned Flanders. I think that's kind of the image everybody gets if you say that you go to church or you are part of the activities, for example, the youth work or something like that. So can you give kind of tips how we can break this stupid image?
Well, I think, the reality is one person can't break a culture's perception of another group of people. So I can't change everyone, the general culture's perception of Christians. I can't. But what I can control is my friends' perception of Christianity from me, my family's perception of Christianity from me, the relationships that I care about and that care about me. I can influence how they see Christianity, and so sometimes we can get sidetracked by worrying about what the culture at large or the people out there think about us, and really that's an exercise in futility because it doesn't get you anything. When in reality, what we should focus on is how can I love my family? How can I love my friends? And how can I represent Christianity to them through me in a way that doesn't scare them away? And in a way that maybe breaks some of those stereotypes. And so that's what we focus on. I think when it comes to church, doing church itself, the most helpful thing that you can do when it comes to planning a worship service, when it comes to creating an event, or even when it comes to being a Christian and sharing that with other people, is to always keep in mind the eyes of the outsider. What is the person who's not a Christian going to see? What are they going to notice when they walk in the door? What are the words that we tend to use that are going to be strange to them? What are the cultural issues that Christians may want to talk about, but the outsider is going to be offended if we immediately address them? What are the assumptions that they bring in that are going to make them naturally defensive towards me? And always keep those things in mind and simply be a good friend and a good host and try to address those. So for example, when we do church in New York City at OSNY, we try to plan the worship service with the unbelievers' eyes in mind. What are they going to see and hear when they walk through the door? Now, we plan the service for Christians. It's for Christians to worship Jesus. Non-Christians can't worship Jesus. They don't know who he is. They don't love him. They haven't been chosen by him. They haven't been baptized into the faith and forgiven of their sins. So it's not for them, but we want to do it in a way that they can understand it. We want to do it in a way that they, as they watch from the outside, can approach it, and though they don't believe it, they won't be scared by it. They can grasp what we're saying and what we're doing. And that's the most important thing. Even as your worship is for Christians, can it be understood by those who are not, so they can watch it, they can look in? When you look through the Bible, you see over and over again that God's people are to be a light to the world. They have their weird way of doing things, their weird way of talking, their weird way of dressing, but they're to do it in a way that the rest of the world can see and can notice and can understand, and if they feel so led, can join in. And so I think it's important for us to just always keep in mind that the outside world is watching us, and that's a good thing. And how can we do our unique worship or lifestyle in a way that's faithful to God, but understandable to them? That's the most important thing, I think.
Okay. Some of the youngsters that I talk about this told that they think the biggest reason why people don't come to church or any other events is because, they feel like they have to give something up in their lives if they want to be part of church or congregation, or how do you want to phrase it? What would you like to say to people who are like wrestling these kind of thoughts?
Well, what I would say is you will have to give things up, but that comes later, and only if you want to. And the truth is if you come to church and you connect with Jesus, and Jesus becomes your Lord and your Savior, you're going to have no problem giving those things up. But that's for down the road. I understand you can't grasp that yet, and that is a scary thing. But the first things first, to anyone who's wondering, like, I'm going to have to give up sleeping with my girlfriend, or I'm going to have to give up doing X, Y, Z, all of that is secondary to who Jesus is. The first thing you need to come to an understanding of is who Jesus is one, is he real? Two, did he really do what he said he did? Did he really say what he said he said? Is he really the one the world makes him out to be? Number one, reconcile yourself to that, figure that out, and then everything else falls in place. Everything else falls in place. And so you may be worried about giving things up, and you may be worried about how your life's going to change, and that's understandable, but it's also secondary. It's secondary to the person and work of Jesus. So first and foremost, I would say, come to church and keep being yourself. Come to church, keep being yourself. Even if there's a whole bunch of sinful things going on, keep doing your sinful things. Just come to church and make the focus on discerning who is Jesus Christ. Does he love me? Did he die for me? Did he rise for me? Does he make promises to me? And if the answer to all those things is yes, then that's the most important thing for you to discern. And then everything else, I guarantee, will fall into place after you come to terms with that central truth of is Christ my King? Did he die for me? Does he love me? Is he reigning and ruling over me even to this day? Is he? And if the answer is yes, then everything changes, but it'll change joyfully.
So if you kind of have to give up, you are giving up something, you'll get much more in return.
Sure, yeah, but it's impossible for the non-believer to see that, and that's understandable. It's impossible for the person who's been disconnected from Christianity to see how that could be a good thing, and I get it. And the reason is because they don't love Jesus right now. But once there's a relationship of love there, then everything changes. So if I were to Kai, if I were to introduce to you a stranger, if I were to introduce to you some girl, and say, Kai, this girl you've never met before, and I say, Kai, change everything about yourself for her. You'd be like, what? No, that's ludicrous. Why would I don't even know her. Why would I do that? That's stupid. This is dangerous even for you to suggest that I change things for a person I don't know. That's how unbelievers feel about Jesus. I'm going to have to change things for someone I don't know? That's ludicrous, and understandably so. But if over time you got to know this girl, and you fell in love with this girl, and she became someone that you wanted to marry, right? All of a sudden, in order to be with her, what would you be willing to do? Change everything. Because love changes your willingness to be who you are. Love changes how you see yourself. And that's the same with Jesus. So I would say, first, get to know Jesus. And then once you discover who he is and all he's done for you, then the change that is needed begins to follow. But it's secondary to Jesus.
Okay. I remember the question I had for you. You gave a speech at the Maata Näkyvissä festival about the hardest thing to do in the world.
Yes.
For people who weren't there, can you give a quick summary about it? Because I thought it was a great speech.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, the summary can be really short. I said the hardest thing in the world to do is to forgive someone. Forgive someone who's wronged you. Forgive someone who's hurt you. To forgive someone who has abused you. The hardest thing in the world to do is to not hold that against that person and to not give them what they deserve. That's the most difficult thing in the world to do. And so what we did is we talked about why that's so difficult, yet so necessary. Because when you choose to hold on to the ways in which you've been wronged, you are the one that ends up getting hurt, not the person that you're angry at. And then we also talked about how God treats us, how he refuses to give us what we deserve, how he refuses to hold our problems and our sins against us, how he treats us better than we treat our enemies. And so we talked about how the love that God gives to us undeserved should shape the love we give to others undeserved as well. And that's really hard. But that's where Jesus comes in, and he forgives us, and he encourages us, and he gives a fantastic example to us, and he's always nudging us towards that place where we're willing to give up our right to be wronged in order for there to be peace. In order for there to be forgiveness, a death always has to take place. In order for God to forgive the world and justice to be done, his son had to die. So there could be a sacrifice to cover over the evils of mankind. And the same is true in your relationships. In order for you to forgive someone who's wronged you, a death has to take place. But it's not the death of a person. That would be really bad. It's the death of your right to be wronged. The death of your desire to hold on to your hurts. The death of your need to remind yourself and everybody else of how you were wronged, and you were wronged. But in order for you to have peace and to live joyfully going forward, you're going to have to give that up. Because the reality is, even if the person who hurt you came to you and said, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, they can't turn back time and undo it. The pain is still there. The hurt is still there. The memory is still there. So what you really need is not for them to say, I'm sorry. What you really need is for you to let go. That's what you need. And so that's a hard thing to do. And so we talked about that. And we talked about how Jesus is our refuge and our resource in trying to do that.
Okay. I have one more question for you.
What do you got?
I think that's the most important question.
Okay.
Do you, Matt Popovits, like Star Wars?
Oh, man. Guy. Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. Up until the new movie came out, Star Wars The Force Awakens, I had never seen a single Star Wars movie. I had never seen any Star Wars. I knew of Star Wars. I understood the plot line because I've been alive in the world for 35 years. But I'd never seen it. And so I went and I saw the new Star Wars movie with my daughter, who's 10, right when it came out. That was my first and only ever Star Wars movie, and I thought it was very good. So what I can say is I liked that movie, but I don't know that I'm a big fan of Star Wars in general. I've never been a science fiction fan. I always find real life much more interesting. So I'll split the answer. I'm not a fan of Star Wars in general, but I do like the new movie.
Okay, that'll do.
Yeah. Are Finnish people, do they like Star Wars?
I guess mostly.
They do? Well, then I love it. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. No one in the world likes Star Wars more than me. My two favorite things are Star Wars and Finns. In fact, I think Star Wars should have been made by Finnish people.
Really?